Hey, welcome back to the Relevant Combustion Corner. I'm Jeff Lorfing, Combustion Business Development Manager here at Relevant Industrial. And I'm so glad you're here. So sit back and relax while we talk about and bring you some of the hottest topics in the world of combustion.
I'm your host, Jeff Lorfing. I'm the Combustion Business Unit Manager here at Relevant. And this morning, I've got a special guest with me, Mike Madzy, who is the Product Manager for the IFM Portfolio at Honeywell. So been looking forward to this. Mike and I got quite a bit of runtime together with this product, but the idea here today is really just kind of talk about the product itself, flame detection applications, and really what it boils down to, regardless of your manufacturer of choice, is, how do you apply this technology to your fired equipment? So with that, I want to stop for a moment, let Mike introduce himself, and then we'll get going. Good morning, Mike.
Good morning, Jeff. Yes, Mike Madzy with Honeywell Thermal Solutions. Been with this product offering since around 2010. The product offering was once known as Iris Systems and now is known as Honeywell Industrial Flame Monitoring. We won't be too product specific today, but looking forward to talking with Jeff about applying flame monitors and why they're applied.
Yeah, that's great. It's a good point too, Mike, because I still, and I know you do too, you run into folks and they still say Iris, right? That product goes back a lot of years, and you and I kind of grew up in the Iris world, and then Honeywell. When did Honeywell actually procure them, Mike? What was the year?
It was completed in December of 2011.
2011. So it's been a minute, like 13 years now. So for all of you out there, that Iris product, that legacy product, is now called Honeywell IFM Industrial Flame Monitoring. And as you heard, Mike's been around that product for a lot of years. And I always like to say we've seen a lot of applications, right? But we always run into something that we haven't seen, and that's the cool part, right? We run into things and we're like, man, we haven't ran into this one before, but with the technology that we use, we really, I can say confidently, we haven't ran into anything where we haven't been able to set this technology up to where, number one, it safely and reliably will shut a burner system down in the need of an unwanted event, right? So I can confidently say that, this technology's very, very robust. And kind of get me into the first thing I wanted to chat about is, we are out, we do see a lot of different applications. And generally when folks are having issues, we find out that they've got the right technology, but they just have not been set up properly, right? Mike, you can talk at that second, right?
For sure. That is a really common thing, Jeff. A lot of folks are, used to taking products out of the box, putting them right directly into service. And the reality is these are products that are typically applied to more challenging applications, exotic fuels and things, those types of, challenges exist out there. So, people, and education goes a long way with properly setting these products up and getting the reliability and, of course, the safety perspectives that you're looking for.
Yep. And, to Mike's point, a lot of the legacy, whether it be Honeywell, FireEye, or whoever your brand of choice is, a lot of these technologies have what we call a fixed spectral range, right? You plug them into service. They do a great job on natural gas, and some of the IR technologies will do fine with, a fuel oil type fuel, and they work great, right? They work great. But, we always get into, to your point, SRUs, we get the TOs where it's just not good, clean gas. It's not atomized oil where, we've got a pretty good idea of what spectral range we're going to be dealing with, right? So that plug and play mentality does work sometimes, but there is just a lot of times where not only fuel, but then we're dealing with other process conditions that can compromise the reliability of these things, right? So, with that being said, I threw out the word we like to talk about is SRUs, right? I mean, that's really where kind of the rubber meets the road, because I know Mike and I and others, we kind of consider that the most difficult flame sighting application, right? And so talk about that a little bit, Mike, because I know, man, you've been all over the world, honestly, all over the world, helping with startups, and if not doing the startup yourself on SRUs. And so kind of walk through that process, as an SRU comes up online and what we deal with in that.
Yeah, and SRU is truly an exotically fueled application where historically we'll see reaction furnace brought up from a cold start on utility grade natural gas or possibly even propane. Sometimes they'll hand that propane fuel over to the plant gas at some point, depending on the availability of plant gas at the time. When a plant first starts up, they may not have much plant gas because they pull that off the top of the distillation towers. And then after these units get ramped up to temperature, which typically is north of 2000 Fahrenheit, they introduce a product called H2S. And this is burned in a substoichiometric manner, and it creates a bit of a challenge. You start out with this nice clean fuel with a strong UV presence possibly, and then you move right into a strong IR presence, and there's often a challenge in between as it transitions. So these are applications where these products need to be properly applied, and it's sometimes more of an art than a science.
The big nemesis, to your point, the 2000 degrees, right? So now we've got a real low frequency IR signature coming off the refractory that we have to deal with, right? And so through filtering and gains, because these particular, the Honeywell IFM specifically, has the ability to filter and apply gains to where we can ignore, for the most part, that low frequency IR, so that it doesn't give us a false indication of presence at the burner, right? Because that's what matters, right? We're there to justify and confirm whether we do have combustion at our burner, right?
Yeah.
And I know we talk about flame detection really kind of being the first line of defense in a burner management system, right? I mean, it's
very much. I always look at that, Jeff, in the same manner as this is the first layer of protection, a primary, input to the, logic solver, whether the presence or the absence of that flame, both of them are important to be able to recognize.
The other part is, too, we've seen a lot of advancements with the platform over the years, right? Back from when it was Iris till now. And one of the most recent ones, I guess, is probably, and you can correct me on this one, but, the all-in-one platform, right, where the split architecture was pretty common, where you had a flame detector at the burner, a processor, signal processor back at the panel, where we would do most of our tuning and make our changes to the application. But now, talk a little bit about the all-in-one and kind of what's on the horizon specifically for your product there with Honeywell.
Yeah, I know we were a little late to the party with the all-in-ones, Honeywell and Iris, so to speak. That some of our competitors had some solid all-in-ones for decades. So the benefit, I guess, to an OEM is the all-in-one limits the amount of products and components that they need to provide. There's also some additional benefits in the fact that they don't require much panel space. So if you're looking at a two-piece solution where you'd have a relay or a processor in the panel, that's taken up some real estate. Where an OEM is looking at the an all-in-one perhaps and saying, I really don't need any panel space. Additionally, I'm going to use the power supply I use for the possibly the PLC. I'm going to terminate it at the PLC. Therefore, I can reduce my footprint in the project. I kind of like the all-in-one as well. From another perspective, is for a service technician's perspective, everything's right there in front of him at the burner front. With a two-piece, sometimes you almost need a relay team where you need to have one person back in the panel and maybe possibly one person at the burner front. This can sort of reduce the amount of people at the burner front during commissioning, and also limit the amount of time that needs to be spent getting access to panels, applying for permits, to gain access to the processor itself, which can be challenging in an urgent situation.
Yeah, that's a good point. Yeah, cracking open that purged enclosure, or just, getting the resources together to do it, sometimes can be a challenge. A lot of these places are busy and, resources are here and there. And, I know myself, I've waited a fair amount of time waiting for somebody just to open the panel so you can, get access to the processor. So from a systems architecture standpoint, accessibility, yeah, it's all right there. And, and if you're currently a split architecture owner, the migration of that is not terrible. And due to the fact that the field wiring that goes back to the house, any wiring that's either contained in the panel or goes back to a DCS for comms or whatever is already there, right? So you just kind of replace that processor space with a terminal. and then pull in the multi-conductor for the all-in-one. So talk a little bit about, we got some exposure to the Indy Flame, right? And some of the things that are driving the development there. So can you touch on that a little bit for us?
Or developing, products are evolving as we speak. So we have a project going on right now. It's a 2-piece product. It'll be an advanced viewing head. It'll be a UV-IR viewing head. It'll be labeled the S650 viewing head. And it'll be very similar in a sense to capabilities of the U2 product. It'll have very similar sensing elements to the product. We're really comfortable with a UV tube that we'll, utilize in this product, as well as it'll have an IR solid state sensor. And in addition, this viewing head will be compatible with a Slate platform that Honeywell has, which would give Honeywell, Thermal Solutions an actual 24-volt burner management solution, which they've lacked for some time now.
Right.
So there's a lot of excitement around that. And in addition, we're developing a processor to go with this new viewing head. And so this will be a triple channel processor, which will allow it to incorporate up to 3 viewing heads and do the voting if you choose into the processor. You could, perhaps a 1 out of 2, a 2 out of 2, 1 out of 3, 2 out of 3, 3 out of 3, and either of those combinations for meeting the SIL requirements.
Still right.
And also, for reliability's sake, sometimes we see the challenge where you need a 3 out of 3 because they have such a nasty, furnace that it keeps plugging up the site ports. So, the more viewing heads you have in looking into the furnace, the higher your reliability in some cases. We'll do some things similar that we do to the U2. And I kind of skipped over this part. So in the U2, if you choose a multi-technology where you have, say, a UV and IR sensor model, one thing that we do a little bit different than the competitors is we add the signals from those 2 sensors or 3 sensors, depending on the model that you choose. And we have a strong aggregate signal to kind of, no matter what fuel that we're, actually burning at the time. That's one of the benefits to these, redundant and triple sensing types of technologies. We'll have this similar with the Indy Flame, where in the processor, you can decide if you wanted to assign the UV to a relay, the IR sensor to a relay, or if you want to assign the aggregate value to a relay. So you kind of get to pick and choose how you utilize that sensor information. The most unique thing about the Indy Flame is the fact that it'll allow you to take a rectification application, meaning a flame rod application today, and convert it into an optical solution very easily without a high price point. So there's a lot of excitement around that as well, especially if you could go from a single flame rod to a 2 out of 2. When we're talking to somebody that's got high reliability needs, this becomes very attractive to get away from the flame rod maintenance and get into an optical platform where they can rock and roll, seamlessly turn around to turn around.
A lot of flexibility with that product, and kind of the different channels similar to the 532, right? But kind of built off of that, with the multi-channel and being able to break out the different spectrums that the viewing head's providing. And then the other part too is being able to build in that voting logic. That logic normally would have to reside in a SIL-based PLC somewhere, where now we can do it on board that processor. Right. And it's a cool looking product. I know y'all had the demos at the IFM Summit, and it's a good looking product. So I'm excited to seeing that roll out and implementation with that, and with the Slate. Yeah, you highlighted that as well. Slate is a fully integrated BMS combustion control system. There's been struggles in industrial applications where we get into these not just clean gas applications. We can't go with just a standard UV scanner, right? Where we knew if we had the flexibility to get into a multi-spectrum scanner, we probably would be able to live there, right, and do a really good job. And so I know that's going to open up a lot of doors for us for an application standpoint. Well, Mike, here again, we took a stab at this a couple months ago, and it was more of a we got interviewed, right, and we just didn't really like the vibe. But I just wanted a spot where I could, pull guys like yourself in, chat a little bit about, this morning flame detection, and like we highlighted at the beginning of this thing, if you've got applications where, reliability is an issue, right? Nuisance trips, right? And I always say is, fire equipment gets a lot of attention when it shuts down, right? when it's running, it's really cool stuff. But, that's when that's when Mike and I's phone normally starts to ring. And so if you've got applications where you're experiencing nuisance trips, you're not really sure about the reliability of your claim detection and the role it plays, give us a shout. That's one of the favorite part of our job is to sit down and just talk at that and make sure that you're applying the hardware the way it needs to be, because more times than not it's just been misapplied, right? The technology's there, and sometimes it's not, right? Sometimes we run in and folks have just popped the scanner on an application, and quite frankly it's not going to work, right? Based on process or field or whatever. So there's just a multitude of things that we can look at. Here again, our first stab at the Combustion Corner had Mike Madzy, which here again, Mike's been in the business a long time with me, dear friend of mine. I appreciate you joining me this morning, Mike, to talk not only about the applications we deal with, but touch on the Honeywell portfolio and where it's going. We're super excited about that. So stay tuned. More to come on the Combustion Corner. We'll be back out at it here in the next couple of weeks with another topic at hand. So I hope you can join us, and we'll talk to you soon. Bye-bye.